Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have a Star Wars Outlaws conversation that I think is very important thanks to growing sentiments that we have seen about this game ever since Andreas and I started covering this game last year, to the point where I don't think that this game is going to be the game that some out there think it is. But before we get into this conversation, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It'll notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into this conversation. Alright guys, so for those of you who are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, what I'm talking about is, ever since we started covering this game, one of the comments that we see on pretty much every single Outlaws video that we put out there, a sentiment that we see from a lot of people, is that this game will be bad no matter what, regardless of what we have seen or what we have heard. This game just has to be bad because this game is being made by Ubisoft, the dreaded Ubisoft, and because of that, this game is going to be bad. Now, before we jump into this conversation, I just want to say, if you are already writing Star Wars Outlaws off simply because it is in connection with Ubisoft and you're not taking into consideration all of the gameplay that we've seen up to this point, that 10-minute segment, the trailer, the stuff that we've heard out of Massive Entertainment, and you're just outright writing it off and saying it is a Ubisoft game, therefore it will be bad, I think you are being a little narrow-minded and a little short-sighted, and I think you should reconsider your position and at least consider what we've seen and what we've heard up to this point before just making the decision that this game is going to be bad. Because to be honest with you, nothing that we have seen from this game or heard about this game up to this point points to anything other than being pretty optimistic about the direction of this game and pretty excited about what this game could possibly be. So it is just incredibly frustrating as someone who is very excited for this game to just see people automatically write this game off because it's connected to Ubisoft. What I want to talk about is Ubisoft's involvement in this game and why I just don't think people actually realize what is going on here, and it's not the game that they think it is. They think that this is going to be bad because they didn't like the most recent Assassin's Creed game, or they didn't like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, or any of the other games that have come out of Ubisoft recently. But what people need to realize is Ubisoft is not one singular development team. It is not one singular studio. It is a company that has a ton of different development studios underneath it. So one team that worked on one thing is not the same team that's going to work on another thing. So just because you didn't like one game doesn't mean that the next game that has Ubisoft's name attached to it means it's going to be a bad game. For example, if you take a look at the studios that are involved with Star Wars Outlaws, the main studio that is developing this game, the one that has taken the lead on this, is Massive Entertainment. They are the lead studio under Ubisoft that is taking charge of Star Wars Outlaws, and there are 10 other Ubisoft studios from across the globe that are involved in this game. There are so many development teams that are pouring resources and time and effort into this game, and it really does feel like Ubisoft is putting a lot of energy and resources into this game to make it a good experience for Star Wars fans. Now, of course, we don't know that for sure. We cannot promise you that this game is going to be good. But based off how Ubisoft is acting and what we've seen from this game and what we've heard from this game, I don't know how you can't be anything but at least cautiously optimistic about how this game is going to turn out. And I think being cautiously optimistic is actually a great way to approach games in the modern setting for games that you are very excited about, because we are guilty of this too. We are guilty of overhyping ourselves for games to the point where it exceeds reality, and then we just end up disappointed. If you've been with the channel over the years, you will know some of the games that we are talking about where we let the hype just kind of go beyond what reality actually was for that game, and you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. But it's hard not to at least be cautiously optimistic about Star Wars Outlaws, so it's just so frustrating to see people be like, ooh, Ubisoft means bad, because that is just not how this works. It's not as simple as that. It's a lot more complex than that. We've seen some people be like, oh, I really did not like Assassin's Creed Mirage. That's fair if you didn't like that game, but just because you thought Assassin's Creed Mirage was a bad game doesn't mean that Star Wars Outlaws is going to be a bad game just because they both come from Ubisoft. In fact, if you take a look at the studios who were involved in those games, they only share one common studio, that being Ubisoft Montpellier. Other than that, none of the development studios overlap between the most recent Assassin's Creed game and Star Wars Outlaws. It's completely different teams. We're going to get a completely different experience. We've seen some people be like, yeah, well, the most recent massive entertainment game was Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and I just really didn't like that game. That's fair, but at the same time, it's not even the same team at Massive Entertainment that worked on Avatar Frontiers of Pandora that is working on Star Wars Outlaws. It's a completely different team within Massive Entertainment. It's not as simple as Ubisoft, one development studio or one development team is working on this game and they all make the same game. So because I didn't like previous Ubisoft titles means I'm not going to like this one, or I didn't like previous Massive Entertainment titles, therefore this one will be bad. It's just not as simple as that. It is a lot more complex when you take a look at who is actually going to work on this game and honestly how massive of a company Ubisoft is. If you just take a look at the studios who are working on this game, you have Ubisoft Annecy, Ubisoft Bucharest, Chengdu, Milan, Montpellier, Paris, Shanghai, Toronto, and so on. This is a worldwide effort from development teams all over the globe to make Star Wars Outlaws. So it's just frustrating to see people boil it down to, oh, Ubisoft means this game will be bad, because again, it's just not that simple. It's a lot more complex than that. So I really do think Star Wars Outlaws is just not going to be the game that some people out there think it is going to be, just because it's tied to this company. You know, it would be similar to saying, walking into when Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out in 2017 and being like, this game will be bad because I don't like FIFA. Yes, they both come from EA, but they're completely different studios within EA. They're completely different development teams. Just because you don't like FIFA and you think FIFA is a bad game doesn't mean that the next Jedi game is going to be a bad game, or the next Star Wars Battlefront is going to be a bad game, or something like that. It's completely different. It's a lot more complex than that. It really feels like Ubisoft has gotten this rap that no matter what comes out of their studio recently, it's got to be bad, right? Because it's Ubisoft. But I don't think people realize that there are just so many studios under that Ubisoft umbrella that not every experience is going to be the same, because it's just not the same development studio. So we really don't know what we are going to get out of Massive Entertainment when it comes to Star Wars Outlaws. The best thing that we can do to possibly get a glimpse into what this game may be outside of the gameplay we've gotten up to this point is to look back on what The Division was like in The Division 2, and to a lesser extent, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, just simply because that was a first-person title. It wasn't that action-adventure, third-person type game like The Division was. So if you want to look to a game or games that have come out of Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment as to maybe how Star Wars Outlaws is going to be, I think The Division is probably the best you are going to do, but those games came out years ago. It's not the same team. They're not trying to accomplish the same goals. This truly is going to be a Star Wars title unlike any other that we've gotten up to this point. And that is something that Massive Entertainment has said time and time again, and Lucasfilm Games has said that they are trying to do something new with the Star Wars IP. They are trying to make a game that we have just not seen up to this point, at least in the modern setting with Star Wars. So to see people just boil it down to this game is Ubisoft means bad, or I have to play as a female character, therefore this game will be bad, is so narrow-minded, it's so short-sighted, it's not fair to the team that is working on this game, it's not fair to the IP, it's not being honest with yourselves. So if that is the way you feel, I would just suggest take a step back, really take a good look at everything that we've seen from this game up to this point, that 10-minute gameplay segment, the trailer, all of the stuff that we've heard in interviews with Julian Gerighty and other members of the Massive Entertainment team, and just do your own careful analysis of where this game is at. And I think if you do that, you may change your mind a little bit beyond just the I hate Ubisoft, therefore I will hate this game. It's just not that simple. So guys, that is our opinion on the matter when it comes to Star Wars Outlaws. We just kind of wanted to set the record straight a little bit, I guess answer some of these comments that we've been getting. It's just frustrating to read the same thing over and over again on every single video, because I just don't think people realize it's not that simple. So let us know down below in the comments what you think of the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws, beyond just if it's Ubisoft, it's bad. Like, really, why do you think either this game is going to be very good, or why do you really just don't believe that this game is going to be good? If you have legitimate answers, then that is fine. But just because it is being published by Ubisoft, I just don't think is a good enough reason to say that this game is going to be bad and you're just going to outright hate it. Guys, definitely let us know your thoughts down below. You know we love reading through your comments and just having this open conversation with you guys. But that is going to do it for me for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.